So while we were knee-deep in brand new toy reveals and news from Tokyo Toy Show, it seems we got a little bit of something from the G1 side of things and the oddball items in the impulse aisle, if you will, from the company Super Impulse. Now, for people who aren't familiar with Super Impulse, you're probably seen their inventory many times when you were in the impulse aisle or the checkout aisle at Walmart, or for those who still had it, Toys R Us. They were responsible for a line called the World's Smallest. And they're a funny company because they seem to be able to license out a whole bunch of different toys and stuff from different companies that lets them cross-mingle. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Now, what their World's Smallest line consists of is what they do is they take pre-existing licenses of toys and they make super tiny versions of them that are really cute. And sometimes they're not really functional in the World's Smallest kind of sense, in that, like, you know, like to give an example, they have a World's Smallest Barbie doll. And while the Barbie doll is really tiny and it does kind of have, you know, that Barbie hair and stuff, it's not articulated like a real Barbie doll or have like a soft head and a plastic body. They just try to kind of like scale down as tiny as possible iconic toys and make them as functional as possible within the limits of that size and the price point and budget. So like I mentioned, Barbie, so that's Mattel. They also did some really good ones with Hot Wheels, where they kind of replicated the old 1960s Redline Hot Wheels with their packaging. And again, really small, but again, not die cast, tiny, kind of like a Micro Machine, actually tinier than a Micro Machine. But they did a lot of really cool stuff like that. And that was from the Mattel side of things. The funny thing is they had the rights to all kinds of different brands. They had the rights to American Greetings, so they did a whole bunch of World's Smallest Care Bears, and then they did even like Glowworms, which is another like iconic 80s toy line, Lincoln Logs. They jumped into Fisher-Price stuff, making like tiny versions of all this iconic stuff, even Light Bright. And the Light Bright one actually was functional, which was kind of interesting. But then they started dipping into Hasbro, and they started slowly getting some of those Hasbro properties. The very first one that I remember seeing, this was I think about last year or 2 years ago, was they did the old 1960s G.I. Joe, which, you know, again, if you can imagine how the Barbie one was done, the 12-inch 1960s G.I. Joe was the same thing with his iconic beard and army fatigue. Then they did a World's Smallest Super Soaker, which again is part of Hasbro's bubble, if you will, when they bought out, I think it was called Laramie was the company that owned Super Soaker back in the day. And then the one that really showed me stuff was going to really start moving towards our brands was when they started doing My Little Pony and G.I. Joe, the Real American Hero stuff. They showed, I think it was about 2-3 months ago, that they were going to be making World's Smallest My Little Ponies based off of the old 80s My Little Ponies. And they were going to be doing World's Smallest G.I. Joes based off of the Real American Hero 1982 original G.I. Joes. With a little card back and everything. Now, recently, as of like this recording, there has been a listing and then finally a reveal of what is going to be the Transformer-related stuff of this. And it's funny because they have all these brands and yet they're still able to have Transformers in this too. So we're going to have World's Smallest Transformers of Bumblebee and Starscream. And the thing is, these aren't transformable. They're just kind of standalone PVCs, but there's even kind of a bit of a story here behind these PVCs and their simplicity. Now, the packaging itself of the World's Smallest Transformers here for Super Impulse is kind of leaning towards what's going on with the Evergreen line right now, where it's a simplistic packaging and that kind of look to it. It's not based off of the Generation 1 packaging, like let's say the G.I. Joe one they were trying to do, well, that they are doing, the G.I. Joe Real American Hero 1982 stuff is based off of its old packaging of the old G.I. Joe stuff with Duke and Snake Eyes. This one is kind of based more off of the recent Evergreen, I don't want to say Cyberverse, but that G1-esque kind of Evergreen style. Even more perplexing is the history of these PVC figures. It seems that these PVC figures that are included, and so far we only seen Bumblebee and Starscream, but the history of these two and where those molds come from kind of give us an idea of what the others will be. it seems that more than a year ago in Peru, Hasbro was part of this place called Coney Park, Peru, which is kind of like, I want to say like Chuck E. Cheese, but any kind of game center kind of thing where you get points and you trade it in for prizes. So Hasbro was actually a sponsor of the Coney Park, Peru game centers, and they actually had Hasbro Peru over there. And they had exclusively to this location of these game centers that you could trade in your points, which it came to an equivalency of about, I believe it was $1.50 or something, to get a choice of Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Grimlock, Megatron, Soundwave, or Starscream. And the Bumblebee and Starscream of those PVCs were the exact same ones seen here today in this world's smallest. So, if I was a betting man, chances are if the Starscream and the Bumblebee are any indication, probably the other characters we're going to be getting, and rightfully so, it's the iconic ones of the 84-85, as I always say. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Grimlock, Megatron, Soundwave, and Starscream. All you're missing from that is really Devastator, and you got, like, the crew, as I like to call it. You know, the most iconic guys. Yeah, so I'm going to post images of the Peru ones, so it'll give you an idea of what it probably is going to look like if we get the rest of them. And then I'll post the images of the actual world's smallest in their packaging for the Transformer ones. But this is something, again, it's already been out there for other lines, and it is what it is. It's not transformable, and I mean, the sad truth of it is, especially, is we got world's smallest Transformers many years ago. They were from Takara, they were done in Japan, and they were spectacular, and they transformed. Heck, it gave us the truly world's smallest official Transformer ever made in Ravage, which was the size of a fingernail, and he still transformed, as crazy as it was. So this is something that's more of a gimmick. Some of the world's smallest stuff that Super Impulse have done has actually been like world's smallest. Like, again, their Hot Wheels stuff, which you could probably still find in Walmart today in the Hot Wheels section. That stuff was pretty impressive and really did a good job of it. Their G.I. Joe stuff, based off of Real American Hero 82, looks impressive. And again, because it doesn't have to really do much because it's an action figure with Kung Fu grip. So it doesn't really have to, you know, transform. But the Transformer stuff really is a limited kind of little PVC figure, which is kind of disappointing. But at the end of the day, we got some really good world's smallest Transformers, quite a few waves of them many years ago. And even on the third-party side of things, after the official ones were done, we got a whole bunch of third-party ones afterwards that were just as impressive. So, I mean, it's a cute little gimmick, but, I mean, Super Impulse, it says it in the name of the company. They're an impulse aisle purchase. Nothing too spectacular. And judging by the listing that's found on their website, these things are going to be like $13 each from what it seems like, which is, you know, it is what it is. Could be, you know, might be cheaper later on, but 5 centimeter tall little PVC non-articulated, non-transforming Transformer figure based in a evergreen packaging, not even really the Generation 1 packaging, but still the styles of those G1 characters. Would you want to pay $13 for it? I don't know. I'm going to let that be your call. Let us know what you think about these. Let us know if you've ever bought any of this other world's smallest stuff. I have a friend who bought quite a few of these, of the Hot Wheels stuff. I never got to mess with it myself, but it looked pretty cool. But I don't know about these Transformer ones because we got something really good a couple years ago that had the same kind of monarchy. So I don't know. Let me know what you think.